Welcome back. Next in the agenda, we have a panel discussion around public safety and saving lives using RTLS. The panel will be hosted by Seth Noon from our Americas team. So over to you, Seth.
Well, thank you, Thomas, and welcome to Quuppa's safety panel discussion in our Quuppa Virtual Event series. My name is Seth Noon, and I'm the host for today's panel. If you've been involved in any of the other panel discussions, you've probably heard how real-time location is being leveraged in a variety of verticals and use cases. And in this discussion, we'll be focusing on how real-time location is used to improve worker health and well-being. And I'm happy to have with us today two Quuppa partners and their customers to discuss the use of location data in two different worker safety scenarios. So in both cases, our panelists needed to solve worker safety issues and found that real-time location can really help them maintain worker health, address safety compliances and reporting more effectively, and also improve productivity. And in one of those cases, the company's journey started as a response to the pandemic to make sure employees were able to continue working and preventing the spread of COVID-19 in the workplace when it had first appeared last year. And in the other case we'll be discussing, it's about really improving safety and response in hazardous work situations, specifically in the offshore energy industry, and how safety is one of the key drivers for this company's operating principles. So first, let me introduce John Buskermolen from iVirtualize and his client, Fred Mastrioni, the owner of ILR Industries. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
I'd also like to introduce Cal Santos, who is a senior electronics engineer from IDK Brazil, and their client, Leandro Lima, who is a senior engineering manager from Subsea 7. Welcome, gentlemen.
Oh, thank you. Hey, thanks, Seth.
Sure. Okay, first, John, can you give me a brief overview of your company, iVirtualize?
Certainly, Seth, be happy to. Thank you. Thank you for having us. My business partner, Dan Simich, is also on this panel with us. iVirtualize is a company based out of Toronto, Ontario, Canada. We are an IT reseller as well as a private and public cloud provider, and have in the last few years ventured into the RTLS space, which has led us to the wonderful partnership with our friends at Quuppa.
Awesome, thank you, John. And Fred, perhaps you can give us a short description of what ILR does?
We're a plastics injection molding facility, manufacturing primarily for the construction industry.
Excellent, thank you, Fred. So Fred, if we could perhaps start with you, can you give us a little idea of what prompted your sort of journey into location services? Like, tell us the story, if you could.
Well, it's just kind of a right place at the right time, knowing the right person. John and I go back a number of years, so we kind of found each other this opportunity, and John came to us. We were kind of facing, I don't know if it's a unique situation because it's, I only know from in Canada and in Ontario how the Ministry of Labor operates. We were basically faced with a challenge of COVID. How do we deal with COVID? Not a function so much of if COVID happens, but when it happens, what do we do? And so when we looked at all these different combinations of items, it's great to, there's kind of two paths that we follow on this. One is how do we separate people, make sure they're separated? How do we follow all those guidelines? But in the event of an incident, how do we justify or prove that we were following those guidelines? And then what happens afterwards in terms of how do we say who comes back to work? You know, how do we determine you're safe, this person's not safe, you were exposed, that person's not exposed? How do we drive that in a responsible way and in a legal way? Because if we were to get an outbreak, of course, one of the first questions that we're prompted to answer is how did you decide the next day who came into work? And this, you know, this solution provided us that.
Excellent, thank you. So obviously this is new technology for ILR. Can you tell us about any of the challenges that you may have seen when you were implementing the location service? You know, with logistics, privacy, whatever it might be.
Yeah, I think that, challenges come on some expected and then a few or some unexpected levels. Some unexpected surprises were a little bit of some people's responses. People are concerned about their privacy. But I think that's mostly explained away. I mean, we're not really monitoring people on cameras are in our facility. We're not a small facility, so we already have cameras in place for security reasons and for lots of reasons, but primarily for security reasons. And if we were interested in watching people all day long, we could watch them on a camera. So this didn't really have an impact on that. And I think once you start educating people on what this service provided for us, that really went away. Their comfort was found really, really quickly. Logistically, within the facility itself, I think most of the challenges were really on how to install all this, because we have a kind of a short ceiling in our facility. So that posed some challenges, I think, for John and Dan and their team. On our side, it's just, a little more software that we have to learn yet more in a world where all these different technologies are coming out and everyone's learning, all these different meeting softwares and accounting softwares, production softwares. This was another software for us to learn, but it actually worked really, really easily because we were on the front end of them working through some of those challenges. So they adapted to it really quickly. I think that's about it. But for the most part, it was pretty seamless. Most of the challenges kind of happened in the background, and we got going in pretty quick step, quite honestly.
Got it. Terrific. Well, we as a technology and a solutions provider, we love to hear stories about unforeseen benefits that businesses perhaps discovered, after they implemented the location solution. I know I've heard some stories from your experience. Can you share with us any, I'll call them unforeseen benefits of having the solution in place after the fact?
Well, actually, if I can go back, this kind of ties into your previous question. I've got kind of a little bit of a funny story that really made our employees have a lot of faith in what we had done. John and Dan, if you remember, one of our employees actually lost their tag in one of the bins that we use, and really didn't know where it was because the tag was into a section of the building that we hadn't committed to actually monitoring yet. Well, once we realized that we really wanted to continue on this path, we installed the system in that section of the building as well, and suddenly the tag appeared. And so we stacked these cubic yard Gaylords. We stack them 3 high, and suddenly this dot appears on the screen, and we've got this forklift driving around, and we're saying, so one person's on the phone saying, oh, you've got the right stack. So they're taking these 3 cubic yard stacks and they're moving them. Hey, you got the right stack. Okay, now which one is it? And suddenly we literally find the 1 cubic yard bin that this thing is stored in amongst several hundred bins. And I think that was a real aha moment for the employees, kind of saying, hey, wow, that was really neat. We found that. And that kind of story kind of spread pretty quickly. I think in terms of us, when we first turned the system on, the way some of the way the dashboard works, we were instantly able to see areas of high traffic. So, you always think that the way we grew as a company was very organically. We weren't a large company that knew exactly what we were going to be building, the exact processes that we were going to have in place. We grew organically, and some of those new products came online, new processes came online. And so we tend to kind of put things where we have space and where we think they make sense. And then suddenly we're kind of changing that. And so some situations where one clear one was we have all these wonderful workstations, and they're reasonably well divided with some space that kind of met the Ministry of Labor requirements. But then we suddenly see that there's this massively darkened area for all that represented all the traffic through it. And we realized that, hey, wow, what is that? And we realized that we've set up a supervisor station in an area that we thought was highly accessible and easy to get to. And we were right. It was so easy to get to that we had supervisors and lead hands regularly going through a workstation to get to that supervisor dock. And so that was really easy. That immediately popped up, and we move it and we locate it somewhere else within the facility, and it immediately gets rid of that. So that was a real easy one that really located it.
Mm-hmm.
I think for us to kind of touch on that organic nature of our business, you know, for us, it's almost like a universal tool. It's like the Swiss Army knife in your bag. It's kind of become justification for a lot of things. We don't really know. We have all this data that's available to us, and we don't really know how we want to measure all of it yet. We keep finding all these different ways of measuring it, how we're spending our time, how much distance we're spending locating things from here to there. But that's kind of part of our growth. And because we are growing the way we are, you know, we keep introducing these new products, we keep introducing these new processes, and it's really easy for us to reflect back and say, do these decisions of the past make sense this way still?
Yeah.
And so it has forced us in a positive way to kind of relook at where we locate some of our raw materials, where we locate machinery, all of that workflow is being reevaluated primarily because of this tool and the data that it has for us. And quite honestly, we're really excited about what else we've recognized that we'll be able to do in the future with all the data that is being presented to us.
Yeah, that's really good. I love that story, Fred, and it just kind of reinforces that there's always some initial problem that folks are trying to solve for, and we hear over and over about other improvements that location data can really make in businesses, and kind of helps obviously justify the investment that companies are making in this kind of technology. One other quick one. You shared a story in a previous meeting regarding some compliances in terms of, I recall you sometimes get visits from the health administration.
Actually, yeah. So we just had 2 recent visits. Oddly, one from public health. It was the Ministry of Labor and 2 Ministry of Labor representatives working on behalf of public health. And you know, we have a almost 60,000 square foot facility here. We went down, met them at our gate. They entered the facility, told me why they were here. We explained to them that we had this tracking system in place. They kind of said, wow, what's that? And I explained what this thing was doing. And they kind of said, wow, that's pretty amazing. Well, we haven't come across that yet. And you're way ahead of anything else we've seen. So we really won't waste any more of your time. And it was you know, they did stay for a couple minutes. We talked about politics and COVID, the COVID extremes, you know, the people on the left of it and the people on the right of it. But that was it. They kind of left, and we were all happy about it. And they were certainly happy. They kind of wrote down the name of what we had and took a couple of pictures, and you know, kind of became bragging rights for them. And it was kind of neat for us. You know, that in province of Ontario, the Ministry of Labor, they work with us, but they work with us so much that they never tell us they're going to come. They just kind of show up, right? They're real partners that way. But I think everyone faces those challenges, so it's a little bit nervous. You know, you always get a little bit tense because you think you're always doing the best that you can. You think that you're in compliance. You work towards building, you know, a safe environment for your employees, but you never really know when people come and want to inspect. So them walking in and out in pretty quick step was justification for everything we had done and everything we had tried working towards, and it made us feel good that we're doing a lot to keep our employees safe.
That's very cool. Very cool. Thank you. I appreciate that, Fred.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay. If we, John, just, you know, Fred's story in ILR is, to me a wonderful expression of location data and solving a business's problems and kind of building upon that. Are you working with any other clients on safety applications that you'd like to mention?
We are talking to several companies, Seth, for sure. There's a lot of interest in it, but there's still some organizations that are putting profit in front of people, and that part is a little discouraging to us to see that, you know, what Fred's doing is really leading edge and a very responsible way to, you know, run a business in this day and age. And you know, what people don't realize as well is that in light of what Fred has installed, you know, we talk frequently about this, and you know, one of the other things that's way down are sick days. You know, Fred's employees are, because they're properly socially distancing, are not spreading even, you know, the common cold or the flu. You know, and the flu is down across, certainly across Canada. In the number of cases, but nonetheless, a common cold that, you know, people get them, and they often get shared in the workplace and things like that. You know, it all helps the employer. And you know, like Fred said, the amount of data that is gathered by the system is immense, and there's so much there. And you know, Fred mentioned, you know, changing workstations, changing where he stores, you know, supplies and things like that. Those are all efficiencies that you don't realize are or are not there unless you have a real-time location services system installed. You know, there's benefits to that. There's, you know, as you well know, we're working with a couple of other large organizations on vibration monitoring. So one of the next steps that we're going to work on with Fred is we're going to start doing some production monitoring on his equipment, so that Fred will know sort of predictive failure analysis, so that we know that the tolerance of a machine is vibrating at, you know, X, and if it goes to Y or Z, then Fred needs to turn that machine off and go make sure that it gets some maintenance done. So that's just the next evolution in ILR. But that's just one thing. You know, once you have the system in, you could be tracking assets, you could be tracking, you know, parts, pieces, tools. You know, the list is endless, really. You know, if you can dream it, we can put a tag on it, and we can track it, and we can tell you what it's doing, where it's going, what it's not doing. You know, it's just once you have it in, the investment pays for itself very quickly.
Excellent.
Actually, if I can add too, there's one other benefit. You know, in the way COVID has kind of come in these ebbs and flows, where 1 minute we're treating it like we're vampires and this thing is sunlight, and if we get hit, we're gonna die. And then the next minute, people are treating it like it's not real. Having real data attached to this gets rid of all that. It makes it purely mathematical.
Mm-hmm.
And it also allows our employees to participate. So, and it's little things, because now anybody who wants to know something, we can show them. You know, you can equate it to the watches nowadays that show your steps, right? It's that kind of data. On top of that, even, you know, the one day I was about a week and a half ago, you don't think people are watching, but the reality is one of the employees says, excuse me, Fred, the light on that thing says that it's red. It's normally green. It's like, oh, okay. I called John. Turns out we had some server issues on our side. Communication had dropped for a few hours. It's back on, but you would never expect. But they are participating. They are aware. They know that that's their lifeline. So it just became every time, like it's surprising that has become that tool for the employees, and very participatory, and very team-like, right?
Terrific. Yeah, that's excellent. That's very good. Dan, I didn't want to leave you out of the conversation. Was there anything at all that you wanted to add before we switch gears a little bit? No pressure.
Sure. Thanks, Seth. You know, we've been talking a lot about the benefits of the system, the benefits that Fred's seen, and what we can do with it. But one of the things I just want to circle back to that was kind of skipped over was like from an implementation perspective. You know, every time you walk into a new company, a different environment, you're going to come across challenges. You know, in Fred's case, there's a lot of steel machinery, et cetera. And some of these other people we've been talking to, there are other challenges. One of the things that we didn't talk about is that support mechanism that Quuppa provides in, you know, how valuable it is to us as a partner and able to overcome some of these challenges in order to make this thing work. And so I just wanted to, you know, express our thanks to the team for enabling us to deliver that to our customers.
Wow, Dan, that was unexpected, but appreciate it. Thank you. Okay. So I'd like to thank you guys. I appreciate that. I'd like to switch gears a little bit and perhaps get a bit of a different angle on worker safety from IDK and Subsea 7. And Cal, if you don't mind, can you just give a quick background on IDK and what you folks do for us?
Sure, Seth. It's a pleasure to be here. I want to thank you for the opportunity. So IDK Digital is a leading Brazilian RTLS technology startup that operates in the energy and natural resource sector. Our mission is to save, impact, and improve lives of human beings through innovative technology. And we aim to help companies make their operations more secure through wearable technologies to measure accuracy and real-time monitoring. Our objective is to ensure safe working environment, preventing accidents, and reducing workplace risk.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Cal. Leandro, welcome. I'm particularly fascinated with what you guys do because you don't come across folks that are in your business every day. Can you tell us a little bit about Subsea 7 and what you guys do?
Sure, Seth. Thanks very much for the invitation. It's a pleasure for me to be here. Yes, Subsea 7, it is indeed a very fascinating environment and also industry. We work for the offshore energy industry, so we are delivers of projects and services for this evolving industry. So Subsea 7 is a company that is located in all continents of the planet. We have over 8,000 employees and more than 20 different vessels, specialized vessels to provide subsea construction. So everything that is between the seabed and the sea surface, we are able to provide and install. So it's quite dynamic environment, and you can imagine it's not only the vessel deck is not only constricted and dynamic by changing itself from day to night, but also it's a floating unit. So taking care of our people and our assets is extremely important, and one of the main values for us is safety. So we live upon that value, and that's why we came across with IDK to build up a solution that we believe will take us to the next step on the industry. If I take you for an example in terms of numbers for the industry, we have in the industry overall, not only Subsea 7, considering the IMCA, which is the International Marine Contractors Association, which is something, an association that Subsea 7 is part of. We have over 300 people that get injured enough to not being able to return to the work in the next coming day, in the next 24 hours. And unfortunately, that also includes sometimes even casualties. So this is a completely unacceptable for Subsea 7, and we will put any effort that we can to avoid this from happening to our people.
Great. Well, thank you very much. Yeah, and thanks for that intro. Obviously, the work environment on the ship is very different from that of a factory or a warehouse. So my question is, what are you guys hoping to get out of the collaboration with IDK and using location services specifically? If maybe you could describe the environment a little bit more and how you intend to implement.
Sure. We came across to IDK by open innovation initiative that Subsea 7 put out in Brazil. So we went out in the market looking for startups, and we set a certain level of challenges. And one of the challenges is to improve our safety. And IDK came across with the solution that will monitor our people and would allow us to make sure that they are correctly positioned all the time, the best optimal position that we can possibly have. And if I take the same numbers that I brought to you, the top reason for LTIs, for the lost time injuries that we have in the industry, the top reason is line of fire, is getting caught between two large structures, is being struck against. So it's most of the time it's related to where people position themselves. And that's due to the fact that the vessel is constrained, and also different types of operations are being carried out at the same time.
Mhm.
And also, if you look into the perspective, we have to establish safety barriers here and there all the time on the vessel. But safety barriers, as it is at the moment before IDK, it's basically a striped tape that we put across the vessel, and block out some areas from entrance. But that doesn't really provide people from getting in the end of the day.
Yeah.
So by using the location system, we believe we not only will be able to be more dynamic in terms of our safety barriers, but also to make sure that if someone gets into some hazard areas, we can stop the operation even before we see it, because the system will allow us to know that something's wrong. So that's the main objective that we have in the development that we're doing with IDK at the moment.
Got it. That's great. Well, thank you for that explanation. And the criticality of really what's happening on the ships and the safety of the workers. So I guess the next question that I have, perhaps it's Cal or you, Leandro, maybe both of you guys. You guys started, if my recollection is correct, the initial work during the pandemic, and any challenges that you guys saw that you encountered during the early phases of the project?
Do you want to start, Leandro?
Yeah, I can say something. Due to the pandemic, we have to establish very, very strict rules for anyone to get on board our ships. So people have to be quarantined, people have to be thoroughly tested for COVID, and we also restricted for the absolute essential personnel. So that pretty much was a big barrier for IDK to have access to the main construction vessels that we have in the region. But we found a way around it. Caio can talk a little bit about the technicalities of it, but we have a warehouse in the region that they have managed to test the system on it. And we have a small vessel that we use to support the large construction one that they also had access to it and make the first tests on an offshore kind of environment. So Caio, can you give a bit of the technicalities you faced?
Sure. So how Leandro was saying, we did this proof of concept that was divided between two steps. So first we did it on a warehouse when we have more ideal conditions, and then we went through small boats that we would like to prove some of the issues that we have on the big one, on the pipeline boats, and we think that it should prove the concept, and we had good results. So basically, on this environment, we have a large amount of metallic surfaces that, as well as the water around the vessel, can cause signal reflections. And this was a big concern, as we know how difficult it is to deal with reflections. And also the movement of large loads that can cause the obstruction of the signal. And as we're working on vessel, we have few spots that we can fix the antennas. So that is a really another issue. But the biggest, maybe not biggest, but one thing that stacks with all of this, it's a floating unit. So all of this together creates really a scenario that it could be really hard to go step by step and solutioning all these issues. But working in an offshore environment is a great challenge, and we know that the planning has to be exhaustive and very well done. But we believe this was a great key point of our work. And it has been a great pleasure to work together with Subsea 7, which, as Leandro explained, share our values regarding safety in the workspace. And we have had an excellent reception from the system, and the workers were very excited to see that their work environment was becoming safer and safer.
Well, thank you, Cal. That's excellent. And you know, this use case was particularly notable, and we're excited to see the progress that you folks have made and how you're utilizing location services to ensure safety, which obviously is a foundational principle for Subsea 7. So, listen, thank you guys very much. We appreciate that. Well, that's about all the time we have for the session here this afternoon. So just to recap, clearly from the discussion with our panel today, we touched on how folks are using location services for worker safety in both manufacturing and also hazardous work environments. Whether the use case is social distancing, contact tracing, or protecting workers from man-machine type incidents and collisions, location is clearly playing an important role in making the work environment safer. We also heard how location services often start with a very specific application or problem that a business needs to address, and how businesses are also learning to leverage that location data for a variety of other productivity improvements within that business processes. So those are very exciting things to see. Making good use of, you know, the investment and the technology and solution that's been put into place. So let me wrap up by thanking our panelists. Of course, we look forward to hearing more wonderful news in your continued work in implementing and using location services in your fields. Thank you guys very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Seth. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Seth. Thank you, dear panelists. This is it for today, but more to follow tomorrow, so please do come back and I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you.